We good. We good. Mic good. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. Now, y'all see how the mic is working. It's green over here. I'm not going to touch a thing. So I also make sure that I pay attention to the chat as well. I'm already laughing at the chat because I saw what Big Bro Finn wrote about Winston Churchill. The best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. Oh man, I hope everybody had a great weekend. Grand Rising, good afternoon, depending on where you're tapping in from. Good evening to all. We got an interesting convo to have today. Definitely an interesting convo. Make sure as you're joining, you are liking. We need to boost that algorithm, get that going, and yeah. So the title of the show and what we're going to speak on, it definitely talks about, how do these people that we end up voting for, how do they even get put in position? There's a very, very interesting, I don't even know if, not documentary, but a video that we're going to go through. Shout out to Philosophy Coded on their page. They put out an amazing show, or amazing video on why democracy rewards idiots. And it's pretty deep. And I think we all got to take some accountability in it. And even when we hear I think it was on the title I wrote, "Are we too dumb for democracy?" We're going to go through a few different videos that kind of just seem to fall into place. We're going to talk about a study that they did. I believe it was on, I don't even know what it was, but it was on CBS Sunday mornings. This is what I was talking to y'all about before, about fighting childhood obesity. We're probably not going to go through the entire video, but Fox also put out a video yesterday about a lot of parents and I'm not going to say a lot, but parents who are turning to using the Ozempic and the GLP-1s for childhood obesity. So let me ask that question again, and maybe you'll have a different answer. Are we too dumb for democracy? If we truly live in a democracy and the world and society is what we vote for, and we can't figure out a way to get out of our own way, it seems like, where you have everybody just complaining, and maybe we're living in a society now where people are complaining more than ever about the world that we live in, or that the country that we live in specifically, but I think a lot of countries are going through this. Do we have to blame ourselves? Who else is there to blame? Do we just blame leaders, or do we just something to think about? So let's start off as we always do. We got some wise words from Big Bro Finn. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. I like that. Leon C. Meganson. I really like that one. Got to be able to adapt. Adaptability. You know, it's funny. They in sports, they always used to tell us that the greatest ability is availability. Yeah, that's because, and this obviously y'all want us to play. Yeah, y'all want us to play, whether we injured or not. You want us to show up, and I get that. Got to be available for work. But when it comes to availability, that ability, and I'm saying the greatest ability, that ability, I guess I should have said, that ability is beneficial to who you're working for. Not necessarily, it's the focus isn't necessarily on what is your greatest ability. And I think what's most beneficial for us is, without a doubt, adaptability when it comes to our greatest ability. Being able to adjust to certain circumstances, being able to learn based on new information, being able to change our perceptions, change what we may have seen as facts, change our understanding, all these different things. I think that is our greatest ability. Shout out to Big Bro Steve in the building. What's up, Big Bro? Democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. Benjamin Franklin. I like that. Hold on, let me read that again. Democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. I like that a lot. I like that one, Big Bro. Definitely like that. The best argument, we're going to read this again. The best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. That's right. A 5-minute conversation with not us in here, because we're not, I wouldn't say the average voters, right? But y'all know who we're talking about. Y'all can probably think of somebody in your mind where it's like, yo, just imagine me. Every time I talk to this person, I'm like, damn, this person gets a vote. Like, I'm just joking. Not really. Imagine if Churchill could revisit this quote after a refresher with a modern day voter. That's a fact. That is a fact. Shout out to Chuck in the building. What's good, Chuck? What's good, Chuck? Morning, Team OG. Grand Rising, Grand Rising. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Shout out to Critical in the building. When people with degrees from esteemed colleges tell in congressional hearings that men can have babies, well, the Critical knows how to get me started, man. Critical. Hey, when you have some of the smartest people in the world that can't, that do tell you stuff like that. All right, so there's certain things that really irk me, and that's one of them. When we have some of our smartest and most intelligent people just to appease to a group of people, just to appease a group of people, just to appeal to their voter base, just to appeal to, I don't even know if that is their voter base, but just to appeal to a particular agenda that may be aligned or may be able to be used in a particular way, like a group of pawns in order to push an overall agenda in these extreme polar voting scenarios that we always find ourselves in. When we can sit here and have some of the most intelligent people, or what are supposed to be our most intelligent people, let me say our most influential leaders, or our most influential people, some of them that don't want to hurt people's feelings and don't want to just keep it real and say, yeah, men can't have babies. That when you ask them a question, what is a woman? They start to, it really is. It's just another example of how far gone we are, And yeah, neither here nor there. All right, let's get into it. What do we get into first? Actually, before we get into the videos, I want to share with y'all my thoughts on Avatar. I saw the most recent Avatar. It finally came out on TV and on streaming platforms. It's on Disney. So if you have Disney, go check that out. Excuse me. It was very good. It was very good from a cinematic standpoint. It was very good from it kept me engaged standpoint. Even though it's kind of like the same story being told over and over. Initially, when I got up from it and I was talking to the family about it, I was like, yo, I like it. But the more I started thinking about it, especially overnight and waking up, I was highly disappointed. And I'm going to tell y'all why I was disappointed. I took a couple notes, actually. In this Avatar movie, without giving it away or whatever, you should have seen it by now. If you really cared about it, you should have seen it by now. But without giving it away, well, peace is a topic that has come up a lot in a lot of these Avatar movies, and it came up a lot in this particular movie where there was a group of people that are trying to conquer this other group of people, right? Now, the people that are the victims, I guess you would say, in all of this, and depending on how you look at it, I guess, but the people that are living peacefully and do not want to take over somebody else's land. They're living, they're doing their thing, they're not bothering anybody. And that particular group is split. It's split between people, animals, avatars, whatever you want to call it, that want peace, to the point where they've banished one of the whale kind of figures. It's like a big whale that lives amongst, it's like the Avatar's brothers, you know, we're all brothers in this world, brothers and sisters, right? So this particular whale decided to defend himself. And when he defended himself, he was the only of his kind that was not killed. Now, even though he was the only one of his kind that wasn't killed, even though his people were attacked, because he killed other people, he was outlawed and banished from the group because they lived by this mindset that y'all may be familiar with, that violence only begets violence, right? It doesn't matter what is done to you. If you decide to do violence to somebody else, you're going to put the entire group in harm's way. That's kind of was the concept. And then you had one of the young ladies, one of the little sisters of Jake Sully, if you're familiar with it. I'm sorry, Jake Sully's daughter. And it seemed like they were praying for a way out of a war with peace. And what ended up happening in the movie is that that particular group that was against peace, they ended up buying into the war, fighting. And there was a whole lot of death, a whole lot of casualties on both sides. And even though the main characters survived, which is, I guess, supposed to be, make us all feel good, there was a whole lot of people that died. And it was a very destructive war. And I don't see an end to it. I do not see an end to it. And it would be nice to watch the type of movie. Imagine how powerful it would be when we understand how powerful these movies are, the power of just symbols when it comes to movies. It reminds me of the position that a lot of us are in now. We can't even perceive what peace would look like. It's hard for us to close our eyes and imagine what peace for humanity would look like because we have so many examples of how war is just a necessity, right? So you have a movie like Avatar, and it's so many deep meanings to it. There's a deep meaning with one of Jake Sully's daughter, who's half Avatar, half human. She's trying to find one of their gods. She's trying to find a way to their God. And there's a part of the movie where it's like you have to stop trying to look for it. And my takeaway was stop trying to look for God. Stop trying to look for this light and just become the light. Become everything it is that you're looking for. Like you're going to kill yourself trying to look for something that you already have within you. And I think a lot of us do that in our own lives. And I think when we have these movies that are they go so deep. And if you've ever watched an Avatar movie, I got on them late. But to me, I'm like, oh, this is just symbolic of such a higher level of thinking or just deeper level. I don't know how you want to describe it, but it's a very spiritual based movie. That's how I see it. And I think that we failed in the movie and I think that we fail, whether it's the Iran war, whether it's any war that we can think of, we failed once we decide that we have to kill people. And I think we failed and gotten to the point where we will condone violating every law of humanity, every principle, moral, sound justification when it comes to our religious principles, our commandments. We know that violence is only going to cause more violence. But we also know that if somebody tries to commit violence against us and ours, that we may have a duty, obligation, responsibility, especially when it comes to protecting our loved ones, to then protect by any means. And a lot of that by any means category falls into what? Committing violence against other people. And it's like we do not have an example. We can't even have a movie example. Like make it up. It's Avatar. Make up a movie to where there's some sort of where people decide to pray and they pray and not aren't going to fight back, and there's some sort of great force that comes out. I don't know, you call it a miracle, call it whatever you want, where the weapons don't work against, they won't fire against these people, or people have this epiphany that I don't know, it's a movie. But when we don't have any examples in our life of how peace can work, how do we expect for that to come to fruition? Every example of these movies that we watch is simply justifying why it's courageous, why it's righteous to kill somebody else, but why it's justified for a reason, right? And we celebrate it. Think about every single war movie that you've watched. Now, I know there's been some sad ones, but I mean, have we ever had an example like where's all these miracles? Like Jesus walked on water. Why can't we figure out a way to have a movie that has some sort of miracle where we don't have to kill off the population in order to fix things, in order to tell this group's survival story? It just doesn't make sense to me, but it's and Critical has a good point. It's Repack Productions. It's definitely repacking the same story, and it's the same story of our lives. It's like, at what point are we going to get to where we realize that, any war is not justified? And all of these movies do, and it's gotten to the point where even when you think about an Avatar movie, we can understand, obviously, to a greater degree, if somebody's trying to just kill me and coming with guns, okay, I'm going to defend myself. We can understand that. But think about all the wars that we've gotten in. Think about all the wars that we've applied. Think about what we're getting ready to celebrate, July 4th. Think about even America. Like think about, I'm not trying to just pick on America, not trying to pick on anybody in particular, but all of these wars, what are they fought over? I want to take your shit. And once I take your stuff, then I'm justified in protecting it when somebody else tries to take mine. It's just a reoccurring cycle. It's a reoccurring cycle. So I don't know what we need. Clearly, religion isn't powerful enough. Religion is losing. Christianity is losing. America is not a Christian country. How do you have the world's greatest superpower, claim to be a Christian country, claim to live by Jesus Christ's values, but Jesus was all about peace? So if the most powerful country in the world is pushing peace, how do we live in the current state that we live in? It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. And we just accept it. We just accept it. And we'll look at other people in the Middle East as savages because they're trying to defend theirs. But then it's, I don't know whether it's the pot calling the kettle black. It's just very strange how we're getting ready to celebrate our independence July 4th, right? We're getting ready to celebrate a piece of land that we clearly took by killing everybody off who was here. They didn't do anything wrong to us. They didn't try to take anything of ours. We just killed them off. And then we had a beef with the people that, like we had a beef with England, right? So we wanted our independence from the people that I guess we conquered this with. But then when we look at the Middle East, we look at them as savages. I'm talking about the brown folk, right? The Arabs, right? We look at the Palestinians. We have no sympathy for Lebanon. We look at all these places as savages when they're trying to simply protect land and want to live in the land that they've been on for thousands of years. And we're getting ready to celebrate our 250th anniversary. But once again, going back to the peace, I don't understand why, like if the biggest and baddest, or not even biggest and baddest, let me say the best and the strongest, the smartest, right? Let's say just the strongest. If the strongest person in the room is setting a standard for peace, then isn't that room more likely to be peaceful? So this is why I question so much when it comes to the bullshit, that the beliefs that people have. You're not Christian. We don't live in a Christian country. Everything works based on standards, right? So you can be a student, but some students have F's, some students have A's. They're all students. We're failing. This is not a Christian country. We do not push peace. We push the opposite. And for all of these people that claim to be Christian, I don't understand how we allow this country and have allowed for thousands of years, not even just this country, but when you look up the doctrine of discovery, you look up, the manifest destiny, you look up all these things where the culture of Christianity has been poisoned for a very long time. And we just have to acknowledge that. Look, it's not me. This is not my opinion. When you read the book, Jesus is pushing peace. Jesus did not give excuses for when we're allowed to conquer other people and say that, yo, if somebody doesn't think the same way as you, that you're allowed to take their stuff. You're allowed to extort them for their resources. You're allowed to take their like. I don't get it. I don't get it. How I don't get it. Like what? Who really stands on values? Like, do we open the book? Do we know what's in the New Testament? We're over here supposed to be New Testament folk, right? America is supposed to be founded on Christian values, but then we're contributing to people that live based on, let me say, the government of Israel that lives based on Old Testament values, but we're supporting the Old Testament values, but we're supposed to be the Christian country. It just doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of this is going to be based on perhaps this video that we're getting ready to watch. Maybe it'll all, give us a better understanding. And I'm not picking on anybody. And it's like people, if you get offended by what I just said, what did you exactly get offended by? Like, what are you offended by? We're just living, and this just goes back to what? It always goes back to the same thing. We have very weak leadership. We have very weak leadership. We have very emasculated leadership. It's very emasculated leadership, and I'm not saying feminine, I'm saying emasculated leadership to have wars. Wars are very emasculated, in my opinion. Like it's just a very emasculated thing. And it's very emasculated, in my opinion, to use other people to fight your wars. Trump, you go fight some Biden, Barack. Instead of y'all going and dropping bombs on people, why don't you go fight one of their leaders? And we'll settle it like in the beginning of Troy. Barack, you go, Trump, you want their stuff, or y'all got to get y'all issues out? Go fight one of these people. Go fight Putin. Go fight the leader of Hamas. Go fight Bibi Netanyahu. Like, why don't y'all just go fight? You don't have to bare knuckle. You put on some gloves or bare knuckle. It doesn't even matter. Y'all go have an MMA match. Y'all go take that shit out however y'all need to. It's not benefiting any of us. None of this is benefiting any of us, but it's like the majority of us, I'm keeping it real, the majority of us are cowards. The majority of us are not only foolish, but the majority of us are cowards. We condone this stuff. We celebrate this stuff. We acknowledge. It's like we acknowledge that it's wrong, but we just sit back and just continue buying into the system. Buying into the system. And it's just bad. It's just bad. But hey, this is the world that we live in, I guess. All right, let's take a look at this video. We're going to go through it. It's pretty long. I don't know if we're going to watch the entire thing, but it's just, we sit back and we wonder, how do the people that, and we've heard this concept before, that we keep choosing the lesser of two evils. We talk about it all the time on this show. You want to know why? Because we're evil. If you continue to choose evil, and in your mind it's the lesser of two evils, only evil people would choose between the lesser of two evils, and that being an acceptable standard of who they vote for. We're evil people. We have to understand that our culture that we've adopted for a very long time is evil. Our justifications of certain things are evil. We live in an evil world. And that's the only reason why we in our minds justify. It's not about whether or not we're evil. It's just about, well, ours, when it's justified evil that you do to other people, then, that's acceptable. That's the just war theory. Very strange. Very strange. Damn. All right, let's get to this video. Let's get into this video. I was getting ready to say, let's just get into the video. We've heard enough. We've heard enough. Tyranny naturally arises out of democracy.
Have you ever wondered why the most qualified people rarely end up leading countries? Why does it feel like we keep electing leaders who promise everything and deliver nothing? Why do experts get ignored while confident blowhards rise to the top? Here's something that'll blow your mind. In 2005, researchers at Princeton ran an experiment that should terrify.
Hold on. Before we get into the experiment, I literally, I mean, do y'all not feel this way? We were in the car yesterday and Al Sharpton came up. And I'm sitting here listening. I'm like, yo, how is Al Sharpton? Like I just don't get it. Like, how is Al Sharpton a perceived leader? And we wonder why we are at the bottom when it comes to specifically the Black community. Al Sharpton is our leader. How do these people get in these positions? And it's because exactly what they're getting ready to talk about in this video, because they just make silly, dumb promises to people that play on your emotions, and we accept them. Al Sharpton, he's not intelligent. He's not impressive in any form or fashion. He's a poverty pimp. He's a preacher. Like he just tells you what you want to hear and says it with a slick preacher rhetoric. Like I don't get it. I do not get it. And there's countless others that I'm sure I'll bring up as we're going through this video.
Ignored while confident blowhards rise to the top? Here's something that'll blow your mind. In 2005, researchers at Princeton ran an experiment that should terrify anyone who votes. They showed people photographs of political candidates from foreign elections. Just faces, no names, no policies, no context. The participants had never heard of these politicians or their countries. They saw each face for exactly 1 second. Then researchers asked one simple question. Who do you think won the election? The participants guessed correctly about 70% of the time, based purely on facial features. 1 second, judgments about competence based on jaw width and facial symmetry predicted real election outcomes with terrifying accuracy. Then, in 2009, Swiss researchers did something even more disturbing.
So just want to stop it right there. So they're making decisions, or they were able to guess with 70% accuracy who was going to win just based on facial features. That may not surprise a lot of people.
Predicted real election outcomes with terrifying accuracy. Then, in 2009, Swiss researchers did something even more disturbing. They ran a similar experiment with children aged 5 to 13. They showed kids pairs of adult faces and asked, "Who would you want as captain of your boat?" They weren't told these were politicians. They didn't know it was an election prediction task. They were just picking faces. The children predicted French parliamentary election winners at rates statistically identical to adults. Let that sink in. We're choosing who controls nuclear weapons, economies, and millions of lives using the same instant facial judgments as a kindergartner deciding which adult looks friendlier. And this isn't some...
Now, let me ask y'all a question. If they added a person like that should just be embarrassing for a lot of us when we think if the kids are predicting it just based on facial features, based on who they would want to be the captain of their boat, and we end up voting for these people, like, doesn't that show how kind of silly we are as adults, voters? Like, doesn't that doesn't do that for y'all? I don't know. It did it for me. And then the obvious thing that I'm looking at, or for me, which stood out when I'm looking at that, and I've only listened to it, I didn't watch this before, I listened to it. As I'm looking at that, well, I bet you if you added another person and it wasn't just two people against each other, it would probably be not as accurate, right? As far as people being able to pick. I bet you if you added two more people and maybe you had 4 people on the screen, 5 people, 6 people, And a lot of people may say, well, we have, before, you determine who's going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party, then you determine who's going to be the nominee for the Republican Party. Even when Donald Trump was running initially, there were a whole bunch of candidates and stuff. Yes, but it narrows it down to one. What ended up happening when Bernie Sanders was running? What ended up happening when Bernie Sanders was running and he was winning? When Bernie Sanders was winning, he was running for the Democratic nomination, right, for president. He was winning, and the Democratic Party just decided to say, you know what, nah, we gotta figure this out. We're gonna put all of our efforts behind Joe Biden. Was it Biden or Hillary? I think it was Biden at this point. We're gonna put all of our efforts behind Biden, and we're just gonna choose for y'all. Why not just say, okay, all of y'all could just run. All of y'all could just run. All of y'all could just run. Doesn't matter. Just throw your names in, and then because that creates a checks and balance system. But they don't want that, obviously, and we've just accepted this way. Like the most courageous thing that we could do is just seems like it to me. I don't have the answers, but this just seems pretty obvious. If they're going to force us to have two political parties, maybe the best thing that we can do is become an independent. I don't know. At least not just give it to them. At least not just wake up. We talk about how powerful words are, right? At least not just say, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. What's the point of that? You've already boxed yourself in. I thought we like freedom. I thought we don't like cages. We don't like feeling oppressed. We don't feel like feeling pressured. We want to be free. We want to be able to have the ability to make our own decisions. As soon as we say that, we just box ourselves in. We're no longer voting. We're no longer choosing. Our vote no longer holds the same weight that it would, that our ancestors died for us to have, right? So why would we limit the voting power by already putting ourselves in a particular category where we take away our control, where we take away our power? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Modern problem caused by social media or 24-hour news cycles. A Greek philosopher named Plato watched this exact pattern, charisma triumphing over competence, destroy the world's first democracy over 2,300 years ago. He wrote it all down. He explained exactly how and why democracy would keep rewarding the worst possible leaders. Nobody listened then. Judging by how we still run elections today, nobody's listening now. Plato didn't criticize democracy because he was some elitist snob who hated common people. He lived through the collapse. He watched Athens make catastrophically stupid decision after catastrophically stupid decision because charismatic speakers convinced crowds to vote against their own interests. He watched them execute Socrates, his mentor, a man whose only crime was asking uncomfortable questions.
What did they say about charismatic leaders? Hold on, I want to hear that.
Make catastrophically stupid decision after the collapse. He watched Athens make catastrophically stupid decision after catastrophically stupid decision because charismatic speakers convinced crowds to vote against their own interests.
Charismatic leaders convince crowds to vote against their own interests. How often do we see this? How often do we see this? We saw this Bill Clinton. We saw this with Barack Obama. We saw this with Donald Trump. Joe Biden used to be a little charismatic, I guess, right? But how often do we see this? We see this with Mondani. Charismatic leaders going to tell you whatever it is that you want to hear, have you voting against your interest. Voting against your interest. Nobody cared what Barack Obama actually did once he got in office. He had a nice smile, handsome guy. He was cool. He was one of the bros. Nobody even knows what he did when he was in office. And then you find out years later, like, oh, Barack Obama was the one that started pushing all this LGBTQ stuff. Like, what did that have to do with what he was running for? I thought Diddy was running around talking about vote or die. Wasn't that vote or die? I thought it had to do with the war. Now it's like what exactly did Barack Obama? And it happens all the time. All they have to do is get somebody charismatic. This is no different than the preacher in church. This is no different than the preacher in church. We consume information based on the things that we like to hear, whether it's a pleasant song, whether it's a pleasant voice, whether it's somebody that just knows how to talk. Ladies, isn't this true? Isn't this why you end up with some of the men that you end up with? Because the charismatic voice knows how to talk, knows how to finesse. Like, this is what we like, right? Fellas, we're the same way.
He watched them execute Socrates, his mentor, a man whose only crime was asking uncomfortable questions because he made powerful people look foolish. Plato grew up in the shadow of Athens' greatest military disaster, the Sicilian expedition, where over 40,000 Athenian soldiers and allies died in a doomed invasion sold to the public by a charismatic general named Alcibiades, who promised easy conquest and vast riches. The expedition was a catastrophe born from beautiful speeches and wishful thinking. After witnessing democracy fail in the most predictable, avoidable ways, Plato laid out a warning that's been sitting in libraries for 24 centuries while we keep repeating the same mistakes. So let's talk about why democracy keeps handing power to people who excel at winning votes but fail at governing, why our brains are wired to choose the wrong leaders, and why the system itself creates this disaster. Plato told a story that explains everything. Imagine you're about to cross a dangerous ocean. The ship's owner is rich, but knows nothing about sailing. The crew starts arguing about who should captain the vessel. One guy steps forward. He's never navigated before, but he doesn't know enough about navigation to realize he's unqualified. He's confident, not because he's competent, but because he's never encountered the complexity that would make him humble. He tells everyone exactly what they want to hear. The seas will be calm. The journey will be quick. Everyone will get rich. He believes this, not because it's true, but because he genuinely doesn't understand what he doesn't know.
I mean, we've been having a lot of conversations about socialism. Is this not exactly that? Is this not exactly that? Now, I don't know how Mamdani's mayoral career will go when it comes to New York City. I don't know. I'm not rooting for him to destroy New York City by any means. And I don't know a lot about Mamdani based on his experience, based on what qualified him to become the mayor of perhaps the most important city in the world. I don't know. And I don't think anybody else knows. And I think that's the point. If he's successful, cool. If he's not, then shouldn't we look at, or maybe we should have looked at before, obviously, like, what are the qualifications? And I'm not even making this about right now in this conversation, pro Mamdani against Mamdani. What I'm saying is that why did people vote for him with knowing that he had zero experience? But what was he doing? He's charismatic, and he's going to promise you. He's going to promise you that you can have an amazing life. You should be able to live in the greatest city in the world, or the most expensive city. You should be able to live here, and the city should just be able to give you money to help you out. And that should, maybe everybody shouldn't live in New York City. I grew up in Montclair, New Jersey, an amazing town. The homes are crazy. Everybody from New York City is moving there and paying cash. Maybe I just shouldn't live there anymore. Maybe I don't make enough money to live there anymore. Like, what? If I'm trying out for a basketball team and I'm just not good enough, I'm just not, I really don't understand, or I want us to understand. Or matter of fact, I don't want us to understand anything. I don't want to position it like that. I want to ask y'all to ask ourselves, when we vote for somebody that we know has no qualifications, but everything that they're saying sounds good, how do we get to a point where we accept that? Because to me, it doesn't start with Mamdani. This is not a thing that starts with Mamdani. This is something that has been happening for a very long time. I think that it happens more so on the Democrat side, but maybe I'm just sensitive to that because those handouts, those promises of all this free stuff, when it comes to how it's impacted Black people, let me just say, I'm very sensitive to that because they've used it to target me. And I'm like, damn, you're targeting me with something, but perhaps it happens just as much on the other side. I just don't have as much experience with that, just being real with y'all. But when people can just finesse you into making decisions based on all the promises that they're going, oh, it'll be easy. This will be good. We'll figure this thing out. No worries. That's what we tend to lean towards. And that's why we end up voting a lot of these people with no experience, but they sound good talking.
Meanwhile, there's an actual experienced navigator standing in the corner. He's trying to explain that storms are coming, the route is dangerous, they need to prepare for difficulties. But he sounds uncertain because he actually understands the complexities. He talks about
And Queez brought up a great point. Trump was elected the same way. Trump was elected the same way. Now, I wouldn't categorize it at all the same as Mamdani because I'll tell you why. Because even though Trump didn't have political experience, I think that when you have certain, let's say, business experience, CEO experience, ownership, people can say Trump had bad or good, but when you have some sort of experience, I think that definitely, impacts things. I don't know if Mamdani having any experience with anything. Like, I don't know what job Mamdani, has Mamdani ever had a job? Like, I'm being for real. What was Mamdani's job? But I know Queez is not defending Mamdani. Just I know that, but I'm almost just want to know, what was Mamdani's job? Before becoming mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani served as a New York State Assembly member representing the 36th District in Queens. Prior to him in elected office, he worked as a foreclosure prevention housing counselor and also had a side career as a rapper under the name Young Cardamom. Is this a joke? Is this a joke? I'm gonna share the screen with y'all. I'm not like making this up. Is this serious? Are you being serious about the rap career? Yes, I'm completely serious. Zohran Mamdani genuinely had a hip-hop career before entering mainstream politics. He performed and released music under the monikers Young Cardamom and Mr. Cardamom. His rap background is fully documented and includes several legitimate career milestones. Yo, this is crazy. So this, along with, I don't want to skip over, he was a foreclosure prevention housing counselor. This is crazy. Let's keep going.
Contingencies, backup plans, things that could go wrong. The crew votes. They choose the confident amateur over the cautious expert because confidence feels better than competence. They mistake certainty for knowledge. They confuse a good speech for good seamanship. The ship sinks. This wasn't a cute metaphor for Plato. This was Athens. The ship was the state. The crew was the voters. And he watched them choose charismatic amateurs over qualified experts again and again until the whole thing collapsed.
And let me be very clear. Let me be very clear, because I don't want to take away from just putting this on Mamdani. Mamdani says a lot of things that I agree with. Mamdani says a lot of things that I agree with. I hope this doesn't sound contradicting. Mamdani says a lot of things that I agree with, period. Mamdani also pushes an entire messaging platform with socialism and giving people things for free that I think will cripple people. So he's very intelligent with combining things. I'll give you an example. He was asked about, should Israel exist? Matter of fact, let me show y'all an example, if I may. Where was this? Give me a second. Because I wasn't planning on using this video, but I think it's a very good video. Hold on. Hold on. Give me a second. I want y'all to hear this. I'm gonna give you an example. And there's multiple examples of stuff that I've heard Mamdani say. Here we go, right here. I got it right here. Give me a second. See, this is something that, and this is a perfect example. See, Democrats right now are the perfect example right now. We'll talk about the Republicans, of why weak, cowardly leadership and not having a backbone now has Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, all of these older, let's say, Democrats getting ready to get up out of there. And you got a guy like Zohran Mamdani with absolutely no experience, nothing, a former rapper who's now developing a certain platform or helping to push a platform that now has all of these career politicians, some of the most powerful Democrats, on their way out because they were cowards, because they had no backbone. And I'm gonna give you an example. This is the type of stuff that I like from Mamdani.
Being American.
And the idea of a Jewish state, Israel is a Jewish state that's in the...
Being American.
And the idea of a Jewish state, Israel is a Jewish state that's in the charter. That's the way it is now. Do you support that?
I've said time and again that I support the state of Israel as a state with equal rights. I believe that any state that preferences...
But as a Jewish state is the question.
I think any state that privileges one religion over the other is one that I can't tell you I support, whether it be Israel or Saudi Arabia or anywhere else.
What he just said is so common sense to me. But Democratic leaders have been too pussy because they're scared to death, because they don't prioritize America. They don't prioritize their principles. They don't prioritize their morals and values. They've been too cowardly to simply say something that simply just makes sense, like what he just said. But instead, if we went back to what he was initially asked, when he went viral, when he was on stage with all the other candidates for mayor, and they asked him, they said, "What's the first thing that you would do if you were mayor?" And most of the other candidates, or a lot of the other candidates, said, "I would go to Israel." And why? And he said, "I would stay in New York and actually help New Yorkers." Oh my God, that's a hard concept to understand. But because so many of our other political leaders have sold out, it now creates the opportunity for a guy like Zohran Mamdani, who's coming through making common sense arguments. Do you support a Jewish state? I don't support any state that prioritizes one religion over another. Why can't we have other common sense candidates say that? But for me, what would be appealing is to not do all the socialist stuff, to not be just promising people who they need the opposite of things given to them. They need people to help push them so that they can figure out how to fish for themselves rather than a guy like Mamdani and his party saying, oh no, you've been oppressed. We're just going to give you fish and then make the gap wider and wider. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, why is he the only one speaking common sense? No shit, he got elected. We're in the middle of what a lot of people believe are watching Israel commit a genocide against Palestinians, and Democratic politicians are still scared to death to acknowledge it, to even say, hey, can we just get a ceasefire? Kamala Harris and Joe Biden did not even ask for a ceasefire. That's why these old Democrats are losing their party. They're blaming Zohran Mamdani. They're blaming, he's just the person. The fact that he could win is insane to me, but it's like obvious in a lot of ways as well. I don't think that should it be any, like, look at what's going on with Israel and Palestine. And we can't get any Democrat, let me say Democrat. We can't get any Democratic politicians to simply just say, I don't think that we should be living in any state where one religion is prioritized over another. And then it goes back to this, to the voter base. Why have we continuously voted for these goofy individuals? Why do we allow somebody like Hakeem Jeffries to play in our face, the Jasmine Crockett's to play in our face? We see what's happening with a lot of them. They talk a good game when it comes to black this, black that, but then you see who they're controlled by. You see where they're controlled by. What do they call Hakeem Jeffries? APAC Shakur, I think that's who they're referring to. You see who these people are controlled by. And see, what happens is there's a lot of people that see the common folk people, in my opinion, and this came up in a conversation. See, a lot of people, there's a large majority of people that just stay silent and won't voice their opinion. I think this happens a lot when it comes to black conservatives. Like you know that if you come out and say certain things, you're going to have a target. People are going to be, telling you that you're calling you all these names, whatever. Some people care, some people don't, whatever. It happens the same way with this. See, there's a whole lot of people, and I think what ends up happening is it's almost like the kid in the classroom. We've talked about this over and over, especially when it comes to the Jewish community. You have the Jewish community, the kid in the classroom that the teacher has been treating a different way their entire, in first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth, whatever, right? They give them special privileges in class. They justify giving them special privileges for whatever reason. And then that kid, when it comes to when they graduate school, of course they're going to be walking around thinking that they should be treated a certain way because they got treated a certain way that entire time. And then when somebody just says something like Zohran Mamdani said just there, they call him an anti-Semite. It's like, wait, what? And it's because so many cowardly people did not address certain issues before that and allowed certain people to get away with certain things and allowed other people to be held to it, or allowed certain people to be held to a standard that's different than everybody else. So it's like now they're looking around like, yo, you're attacking me. Well, yeah, you feel attacked because you've been privileged your entire life and treated with kid gloves when everybody else is like, we don't treat the Muslims with kid gloves.
And a lot of that comes back to a fundamental belief that we should all be considered equal no matter what our faith is.
That we should all be considered equal no matter what our faith is. But see, that's not what a lot of people believe. That's not what a lot of people believe. Most religious people, y'all are cultists, bro. Y'all are cultists. Y'all think that y'all are better than people because you're Christian. You think you're better than people because you're Muslim. You think you're better than people because you're whatever other religion. And even the religions that claim that they don't look at that way. And I gotta call a spade a spade. Y'all know I have friends that are in the Baha'i faith. I have friends in a lot of different faiths, a lot of different groups, and they all believe that their particular religion, what they believe, like they think that it's the way or the answer for everybody. And meanwhile, me, who I don't subscribe to any religion, any spirituality, I like learning from all of them. And this may be with the exception of Buddhism. Buddhism may be in its own category. But overall, everybody believes that. Is it a surprise that everybody believes that their particular way of life is the answer? This is refreshing to hear. When I hear Zohar Mamdani say, like, yeah, let's listen to it again. This is refreshing.
Be an American.
And the idea of a Jewish state, Israel is a Jewish state, that's in the charter. That's the way it is now. Do you support that?
I've said time and again that I support the state of Israel as a state with equal rights. I believe that any state that
But as
preferences...
a Jewish state is the question.
I think any state that privileges one religion over the other is one that I can't tell you I support, whether it be Israel or Saudi Arabia or anywhere else. And a lot of that comes back to a fundamental belief that we should all be considered equal no matter what our faith is.
Does anybody disagree? Does anybody disagree with this? But see, we to really dig deep into this, we have to acknowledge what a lot of the culture of our religions are based on. We have to acknowledge these things. Most people I know that belong to a particular group, they may not admit it, but you think that you're better than other people that don't subscribe to the same principles, morals, and whatever else that you think is best for you. You try to push whatever it is that you're on. People will say that they're not trying to push people unless you're Jehovah's Witness. They just are out there with it. But people will say they're not trying to. It's one or the other. They're either trying to recruit or they just think that they're better and probably just don't want, like, nah, we're not accepting any new people over here. Like, we're not accepting members. We're good. It's like either one or the other, right? But both people, both mentalities think that they are better than other people. Let's go back to the other video. Oh man, I'm gonna lose some friends on this one. Oh boy.
And we're still doing it. September 1960, the first televised presidential debate in American history. Richard Nixon versus John F. Kennedy. On radio, listeners thought Nixon won, but on television, Kennedy dominated. Why? Nixon looked pale, sweaty, uncomfortable. Kennedy was tan, rested, telegenic. He looked presidential. People who watched on TV overwhelmingly picked Kennedy as the winner of the same debate that radio listeners thought Nixon won. The same words, the same arguments, different medium, different winner. Appearance changed everything. Or take Brexit in 2016. The Leave campaign had 3 words plastered on buses: take back control. The Remain campaign had economists, detailed reports about trade consequences, complex analyses of economic integration. The simple story beat the complicated truth. Voters admitted afterward they didn't fully understand the economic implications. But take back control felt right. This pattern isn't unique to one country or political ideology. From Italy to the Philippines, from the UK to the United States, the same dynamic plays out. Charismatic simplicity beats knowledgeable complexity. Every single time. Here's the question Plato forces us to confront. Why do we treat leading a nation as the one job that requires 0 qualifications? We demand that doctors study for over a decade before touching a patient. We require pilots to log thousands of hours before flying commercial aircraft. We need licenses to cut hair, drive cars, sell real estate. But running a country and making decisions that affect millions of lives? Just be popular enough to win a vote. No experience required, no competency test, no demonstration of actual knowledge.
And a lot of that's on us. and there's multiple examples of this type of stuff, why do we just allow ourselves to vote based on a debate? Think about that. Think about that. Let's go back to the last election. I remember in my mind, as I always see Taraji P. Henson talking about the 2020 Project 2025, Project 25, whatever it's called. And she was at the BET Awards, like screaming, like they're trying to put us in chains and shackles, Project 2025. And I'm like, okay. I doubt that she's actually read it. I doubt that most people actually read it. When I read the portion, I didn't get through the whole thing. But the sections that I did read, I actually learned a lot about how the government works and stuff like that. I didn't see the part where they were putting us in chains and shackles. I didn't see that part. Maybe I didn't get to that part. Cool. What stood out to me is that the Democrats and a lot of people now, when I say this, when I'm getting ready to say, I know what the response is going to be. It's going to be, well, that wasn't necessarily Trump's plan. Well, y'all tried at the time, y'all were trying to make it seem like this is Donald Trump's plan, right? So let me say what I'm getting ready to say. If you're trying to say that that's Donald Trump's plan, where's your plan? Like, I don't want to see y'all debate. Like, show me a plan. Show me a plan of action. And if we're going to have, let's say, forget you debating the other candidate. We don't need you to debate the other candidate. What we need you to do is maybe sit down with a guy like Thomas Sowell. Sit down with some of these experts. And each candidate has to get asked these questions. You get asked these questions. And I don't even care if it's open book to a certain degree. It could be open notes. You should be able to talk with a certain level of confidence on a lot of these issues. So maybe it shouldn't be open book. But I mean, if I was in a debate with something and I didn't know, it's more, I'm trying to figure out how somebody thinks rather than if they could just recite the rehearsed answer. You get what I'm saying? But neither here nor there. Why not have your plan be given to a certain expert in a particular area? You know, let's say if it's finance on the economy, you have somebody sit down with some of these experts and they actually can be the ones interviewing you. Those are that's what we need to see. Not you debating with the other goofy who doesn't know as much. Like, it's like neither one of y'all know anything. But we just get y'all to debate on stage, two unqualified people, and then we're going to make a vote for the lesser of two evils and fight viciously between each other about why my candidate that I'm voting for is better than yours. It just doesn't. So once again, Trump should have had a plan. If you're going to act like Project 2025, which he was acting like it wasn't yours, why don't you have a plan? Kamala Harris, where's your plan? So for the next election, we'll see. We'll go through the same cycle of goofiness. They're not going to have to do anything. It's like they're going to just make promises based on things that they've never done or never even been held accountable, because we don't hold these people accountable. We root for them to win. Then when they win, all of these things that we felt so passionately about, right? About them being able to do when they're in office, we don't even hold them accountable. I said it the other day. If right now all these people, there's a whole lot of people that are laughing at Trump, that are rooting for Trump to fail, and people will lie and say, "Well, I'm not rooting for him to fail. I hope he doesn't destroy the country." Stop lying. Stop lying. You would love for Donald Trump to fail. You pay attention to him and hoping that he fails more than you'll pay attention to when Joe Biden was in office, holding him accountable to actually do the things that you voted for him that I thought you cared so much about. See, this is where, respectfully, this is where I'm different than y'all. I have to say, I'm different than y'all. Y'all saw me come on here in public on live stream within a couple months and say, I voted for Trump. I don't like what he did here. Don't like what he's doing here. And went through a whole list. Because I want to make sure that I'm keeping the same energy. And hopefully holding the person that I voted for more accountable than I use the energy to criticize the person that I don't like, the person that I didn't vote for. We've seen Tucker Carlson turn against Trump. We've seen Dave Smith, Candace Owens, Alex Jones. We've seen Steve Bannon say certain things against Trump. We've seen a lot of these dedicated Trump followers, right? Or people that helped him get elected, you could say. Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn. Can you name me the amount of Democrats that when Joe Biden wasn't delivering on the things that he was supposed to deliver on, that stood up and said, this ain't it? Nobody was trying to hold him accountable. Nobody was saying, damn, like, nobody was pissed off the fact that the person in control of the largest informational source that we have, the largest way that we consume information is what? Social media. The person in control of Meta came out and said that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they forced me, and he's a sucker for being forced, so he doesn't get any credit for that. He's a sucker too. But they forced me to censor certain experts, certain opinions that didn't align with Fauci and what their administration was pushing, that they were censored over something that we're injecting in our body that caused a whole lot of people complications and killed a lot of people. Nobody cares. Nobody's calling that out. Like it's like we're living. It's like, yo, how insecure of a person are you if you just can't admit that you, like, if you can't hold somebody accountable that you passionately were supporting? How insecure? I feel bad for y'all, yo. How insecure, bro? It took me what, a few months? I'm glad that it's on here. It took me a few months. Like, yo, I'm disappointed in Trump. I don't like this. If I encourage y'all to vote for him, I apologize. This was within a few months. Why? Because I feel like that's what a leader's supposed to do. You're supposed to hold people accountable. You're supposed to acknowledge, like, yo, if you made a decision that you don't like where it's going, I gotta stand on that. I gotta stand on that. But we just, like I said, emasculated men, bro. We have emasculated men that are running the world. We have emasculated men that have been running the culture of America and the culture around the world, and that's why we have these results that we have in society right now. Emasculated men. Al Sharpton is one of the leaders in the Black community.
Plato had a name for the people who thrive in democratic systems: sophists. These were masters of persuasion who cared more about winning arguments than finding truth. They could argue any side of any position with equal conviction as long as it got them power, money, or influence. Now here's what made them dangerous. They weren't stupid people. Many were intellectually capable, even brilliant in certain areas. But when it came to governance, understanding economics, ethics, justice, the long-term consequences of policy, they were operating completely outside their expertise. Yet their skill at rhetoric made them appear qualified. They knew how to sound wise without being wise. They knew how to project authority without possessing knowledge. To Plato, this was the most dangerous combination: intelligence without wisdom, confidence without competence, persuasive skill without genuine expertise. These people didn't know what they didn't know. They'd mastered the appearance of knowledge without acquiring actual understanding. They could convince crowds they understood economics without understanding economics. They could project expertise in governance while being catastrophically ignorant of how states actually function. Think about what this means for democracy. The system doesn't select for people who understand governance. It selects for people who can win popularity contests. And winning a popularity contest requires a completely different skill set than running a country. What skills does a democratic election reward? Public speaking, charisma, the ability to simplify complex issues into memorable slogans, looking good on camera, projecting confidence, making people feel good. These are legitimate skills, just not the ones you need to govern effectively. The skills needed for governing: understanding economic systems, navigating complex foreign policy, managing massive bureaucracies, making difficult trade-offs between competing values, acknowledging uncertainty, accepting that some problems have no good solutions, only less bad ones. Say any of that in a campaign and you lose to someone promising simple fixes. So democracy creates a systematic mismatch. It elevates people who are brilliant at campaigning and often incompetent at governing. Not because they're generally stupid, but because they've spent their lives developing the wrong expertise.
Damn. Yeah, I don't think that I agree with that. Not because they're stupid. They've just focused on other areas. They're focusing on how to be charismatic. They're focusing on how to communicate. Maybe part of Mamdani, I'm sure actually, part of the reason why he's such a great speaker, Mamdani's a great speaker, is because he was a rapper, maybe. I mean, I'm sure that plays a role. I'm sure that plays a role. He's charismatic, he can speak, but other than that, I guess qualifications don't matter. And we see this all the time when it comes to relationships, right? We see this all the time. Yo, how did you end up with that guy? Yo, what made you deal with that chick? How did you? It's all just charismatic. We're emotional beings. We decide based on emotions. We buy based on emotions. We choose our partners based on emotions. We choose our candidates based on emotions. We choose our car based on emotions. Like everything is just based on emotion. We are just emotional beings. And we continue to throw logic out the window. Every time we choose the lesser of two evils, every time we make these choices based on emotions, like we're just, it's like we're dumbing down our society more and more every single time. Every single time. Let's keep going. Where's the thing?
Here's what's remarkable. Plato identified the exact same pattern 2,400 years before psychologists gave it a name. Remember the Dunning-Kruger Effect? Psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger found that people with the least expertise in an area often display the most confidence because they lack the knowledge to recognize how much they don't know. That's exactly what Plato said about sophists. They were confident because they hadn't studied deeply enough to encounter real complexity. An actual philosopher, someone who spent years studying governance, ethics, economics, would be humble because they understood how intricate these systems are. But the sophist, he's never gone deep enough to discover his own ignorance. So he radiates certainty. He has simple answers because he's never understood the complicated questions. And in a democracy, that certainty wins elections. Plato called this the difference between doxa and episteme, opinion versus knowledge. Episteme is hard-won understanding gained through years of rigorous study. It's knowing how systems actually work, recognizing unintended consequences, understanding trade-offs. It's the expertise that makes you competent at governance. Doxa is surface-level thinking, gut feelings, confident assertions based on limited understanding. It's what happens when we confuse our feelings about something with knowledge about something. It's being certain while being wrong. Democracy runs on doxa, not episteme. Elections reward doxa. Campaigns are built on doxa. And doxa always beats episteme because it's easier, faster, and more emotionally satisfying. The candidate with episteme will say, "This problem is complicated. Here are 3 possible approaches, each with significant trade-offs. I'll need to consult experts and adjust based on results. A candidate with doxa will say, I alone can fix this. The solution is simple. Trust me. Guess who wins? The confident amateur, every time. Not despite lacking expertise, because lacking expertise lets them project simple certainty. And here's where modern psychology explains why this keeps working. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in economics for discovering.
We're only going to watch maybe about another few seconds of this, then we got to pivot. There's another video that I want to take a look at.
That our brains operate on two systems. System 1 is fast, automatic, runs on emotion and instinct. System 2 is slow, deliberate, runs on logic and analysis. When we watch political debates or see campaign ads, our System 1 brain does most of the work. We get gut feelings, emotional reactions, instant judgments. System 2 might kick in later to rationalize what System 1 already decided, but the initial choice happens in seconds. The sophists, the confident amateurs, are System 1 experts. They trigger emotional responses, create memorable narratives, project authority. The actual experts try to engage System 2. They want us to think carefully, consider complexity, acknowledge uncertainty. But System 2 is slow, requires effort, and our brains evolved to be energy efficient. Here.
All right, we're going to stop it there on this video. Ah, man. Man. Interesting times that we're living in. Very, very interesting times that we're living in. And I think this is all just for us to consider, maybe reconsider how we've been prioritizing, how we vote for certain things, how we're influenced by certain things right now. It's not a surprise when we look at the pendulum swing of why certain people win elections. If we had to say, I guess maybe next year, actually, this next election is going to be very interesting. This next election is going to be very interesting because I don't know. It almost seems like, y'all tell me if it's seeming this way, where naturally you would think that, okay, Donald Trump's president, got us involved in these wars that we didn't want. The pendulum's going to swing in the other direction, or at least it's primed to swing in the other direction. You have J.D. Vance, who's a part of, obviously, what Trump is doing. You got Marco Rubio. He's more of a war hawk than J.D. Vance. You would see things swinging in the Democratic direction. The Democrats have, to me, they should be favored. And I don't even know if they have a candidate. It really doesn't even matter who. I could easily see a guy like, it's going to sound crazy. This is going to sound crazy. Hold on, man. When is Mamdani's mayoral term up? Hold on. And I may not say what y'all think I'm getting ready to say, but hold on. Bro, when is his term over? Simple question. When is his term over? Nah. It wouldn't work. He'll still be in office. All right. I was just thinking in my mind. But I could see somebody who's pushing a message like Mamdani win. I could easily see somebody pushing a message like Mamdani to win. And there's a reason why. It's one, he just combined two simple things, in my opinion. One is telling people, oh, I'm going to give you stuff for free. And when you tell people that who already feel like it's hard for us, the cost of living is up for everybody, what we're making isn't making sense for the cost of living that has gone up so much. So it's like, if you're going to ease my financial burden, that's going to make people feel good, right? Two is he's going to, like, when you say certain things that he's willing to say, that a lot of other people have been scared to say, to the point where it's like you can be scared to say certain things so much that when somebody just comes out and says it, it's like, well, yeah, that's common sense, but damn, how did we get to a point where we were scared to even say that? Yeah, you think all religions, like, everybody should just be treated equal no matter what your religion is. He's an anti-Semite. He's a like, what? That's how far gone a lot of our politicians have gotten. That's how much we've been manipulated, perhaps ever since 9/11, to see the world in a particular way, where we just look at brown Arabs as just totally, like, oh, they're all terrorists. Their lives aren't worth the same as our lives. Because that's just being real. That's what we look at it as. Their lives, they died, but October 7th, but we always throw one of these in there because we don't value everybody's lives the same. And we've been conditioned to value certain lives more than others. So when you have a Mamdani that's now sitting here who's like, yo, because look what ends up happening is, what's the main issue that's causing Democrats and Republicans to split on? It's Israel. It's Israel. The Republicans don't like the fact that we're giving our money to Israel, right? Like, why are we still supporting them? This isn't. A lot of them. Some of them think that it's a genocide. I think that's more of like the like Dave Smith. I don't know if that's more the libertarian independent, but I think a lot of people who some conservatives just overall maybe, but I think the majority of their arguments that they make are more so on because they think that that's a more acceptable argument within the Republican Party, instead of just saying, yo, there's a genocide. I don't rock with that. This is immoral. Instead of saying that, because they can't say that because they have too many backers that are pro-Israel or Zionist, so therefore they can't say that. So they'll just say, well, I just don't feel that. You get the Matt Walsh types. Well, I just don't feel that, we should be sending all of our money over there and supporting them, because that's the safer way to say that. And then you got people, the Chuck Schumers, the Hakeem Jeffries on their side. Well, they're arguing with their side because you got the Mamdanis that are just saying, yo, free Palestine. And now they got to argue with the Hakeem Jeffries. So this issue is creating a split between, splitting apart, Democrats and Republicans. So I could easily see this next election, somebody who's just willing to say, like, nah, we're not rocking with supporting, Israel and their efforts. I could see somebody who says that get a lot of motion. And depending on what their approach is, I guess depending on what side there is, there's an opportunity right now for a third party to be created. And I almost wish, and maybe this is already naturally happening, but maybe it's just going to be, maybe instead of a third party, there'll just be four parties. Because it seems like the Republicans are now threatened to get split, even though I don't think it will actually happen. And the Democrats they're threatened to get split because you got, like I said, the old school now versus the new school. Now they're beefing more than even with the Republicans. So maybe it'll split between four, but I think that's dangerous. I think you need three. I think you need a odd number in that case. I think that four is too close to two because we got to just figure out a way to come together on this side, or we just got to figure out a way to come. Now we need a three. We need a third. That doesn't see themselves as Democrat, that doesn't see themselves as Republican, that doesn't want to, we need to come together just for the greater good of the Republican Party, or we need to come together for the greater good of the Democratic Party. Nah. I'm not with neither one of y'all. Matter of fact, we aren't even a party. We're just the people that are sick of y'all parties. So whoever's sick of voting for the lesser of two evils, whoever's sick of pledging their allegiance to a particular political gang, whether Democrats or Republicans, whoever just wants to bring about a common sense, manly understanding, leadership, true leadership, where we come together, we come to the table, we don't allow ourselves to be split with emotional arguments that people are just trying to mislead us. to manipulate us. Nah, we come together and we have discussions. And we realize that no matter what party that we're in, the majority of us, look, we want the same things. We're more alike than we are not alike. And it's with having these political affiliations that make us just no different than Bloods and Crips. I'm sure Bloods and Crips are a lot more alike than Bloods or Crips are with people that are not in gangs. You get what I'm saying? Y'all are actually the same thing, but y'all just wear different colors. So now you get the concept around it. So we need a third group. We need a different group. We just need some independent free thinkers. My opinion. But all right, let's watch a quick little clip. Matter of fact, are we gonna watch a quick clip of this? We're gonna watch this little Jaylen Brown video, which he's talking about a lot of these things, where he's encouraging a lot of students to think critically. And this is a talk that he did in Morocco. Maybe we'll watch a few minutes of this. I thought that it was a dope combo, and I think that it aligns with a lot of the things that we're talking about now, how society's pressure and how the media influence us to think one way or another. So let's take a look at this. Hold on. Here we got it. And oh my God, thank you so much, Critical. Thank you so much. And I know we still had to do we still got to do a feature on the water because we are living in a water crisis right now. But Critical said people always think their way of government will work because on paper it should. Human nature will interfere every time. I think this is, you know what's so funny? I wish I almost listened to the end, let y'all see a little bit more of that video that we were watching, but it's just too long. And I should have timestamped where it said, it was talking about democracy. And I don't know if it was Churchill or somebody made the comment that democracy is the worst form of government, except when it's compared to all the other forms of government. It says something like that, like democracy is the worst form of government, except when compared to all the other forms of government. Something like that. And if it wasn't exactly like that, then this is my quote moving forward. But that's the takeaway that I have from it. And it's saying like, yo, yeah, democracy doesn't work, but neither have all the other forms of government worked. So I think what it comes down to is what Critical brought up is we need peace. We need some sort of common sense. We need to understand that the more that we give a government power, the more that we're not able to just police ourselves based on common principles and a common understanding, dignity, the golden rule, treating others the way that we want to be treated. That is the only way. Other than that, whenever you get people that we're putting in power to rule over a bunch of other people, it's always going to be finessed into a way where it's not working in the people's best interest. So, I don't know. I shouldn't say I don't know. But I don't. Let's keep going.
Today, I'm going to be talking about breaking panopticism, also algorithmic social engineering. If I control the technology, I can dictate the market. I'll explain what that means. Michel Foucault, a French philosopher in 1975, in her work Discipline and Punish, talked about panopticism. She based it off of a prison design, right? It was a prison design with a watchtower in the middle of the prison. And this theory was that, like, by putting the watchtower in the middle, the prisoners would police themselves because they're under surveillance. So physical authority has shifted to psychological authority, right? And over time, their behaviors change, and this causes a term she calls dynamic normalization. So in the digital age, the watchtower has transferred. So through technology, through bots, through fake viral clips, fake accounts, you can police platforms and algorithmically influence society with the technology that you can control. The technology that you can control can dictate the market. We see it across various industries all the time. A lot of people have seen some of my quarrels with the media industry. That's kind of the reason why I started streaming. You know, some of you have seen my stream and going off on Stephen A. Smith. But exactly, but Stephen A. works for ESPN. ESPN is controlled by Disney. Stephen A. doesn't choose the topics. Somebody chooses them for him. You know, his willingness has made him extremely valuable to these companies, but
his willingness has made him extremely valuable to these companies. What he's touching on is something that we all are aware of, I think, to a certain degree. We understand that we're getting influenced. We understand that the algorithm is controlling a lot of the ways that we look at the world. And if we don't understand it, what did I talk about earlier when it came to Mark Zuckerberg exposing Kamala Harris and Joe Biden for? If it wasn't impacting us in a serious way, then why would the president and vice president make sure that they're censoring certain videos that are coming out on the most popular platform in the world? That has the meta platforms, I believe, have the most amount of followers, most members, however you want to describe it. They reach the most amount of people. Why else would they be tapping into it if it's not that serious? They understand the importance of it. Who else brought up the importance of a lot of the social media? Y'all remember when Bibi Netanyahu, I think he was like, we're fighting an 8-front war. And the most important front of that war is social media and TikTok. Y'all remember that? There's a reason for all this. All the people that are trying to control us or that are controlling us, they understand the importance of it and how it changes how we think, how we process information, our perception of different things. But a lot of times we don't understand how much of it is a weapon and how much we are being attacked by it. I'm glad that somebody like Jaylen Brown is willing to call out a lot of this stuff, because typically when it comes to athletes, when they're in their career and they're getting paid, they're not willing to ruffle the feathers when it comes to a lot of this stuff.
You know, a lot of these companies and corporations, they meet 4 times a year and talk about amongst various industries how they can socially engineer and influence our minds, right, through the technology that they can control without us really even paying attention and even noticing it. Just like the Michel Foucault theory, where I was talking about the watchtower that is policing the prisoners. Bots, comments, positive comments or negative comments could affirm whatever agendas that they want to push. They can create the bots, they can control kind of the approvals or disapprovals of what is in society. Another example is kind of like group thinking.
Let me give you an example. And a lot of times people don't realize, and this is where we have to have a bit of grace too, where everybody's not impacted by the same things, where you can look at an election and we can look at the things that may bother me that got me to vote for Donald Trump because I'm so bothered by a lot of the woke stuff that the Democrats are pushing. Somebody else may not be as concerned with the woke stuff and they may be bothered by other things. So we do have to give grace when it comes to that particular aspect. Period. So everybody's going to be bothered by it. And this is when it goes wrong, when we only have the 2 candidates. We already went over that. I just wanted to bring up a point. I was having a conversation with somebody and they were talking to a gay woman. And they were talking to a gay woman, and the conversation came up about how many men are out here dressing like women and stuff like that. And I was sitting here and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, that is all just like, maybe people don't realize it. Maybe people just think that this whole LGBTQ movement, that people were always this gay or this trans or this queer or whatever category. But there's others that maybe acknowledge that a lot of these influences that we're seeing it on the side of buses. We're seeing it in every TV show. You got books in school libraries. You got drag queens reading books. This is being forced on a lot of us. People say that even the weed, the strands of the weed are emasculating men. You see a lot of these influences. And a lot of people will think that it's crazy, but then when you think about it, what has always been the goal to control society? How do you control a group? If I'm getting ready to go in and take over another group, who's the first person that I want to take out? The head of the snake, right? The strongest person, the leader. If I take out the leader, everything else is gone. How many times have we watched the movie Troy on this show where we see the opening scene where Achilles takes out the biggest and baddest of their military, their soldiers, and the war's over. One little war's done. We took out your biggest and baddest. Now we control you. So what is always happening when it comes to the families? We talked about this plenty of times with Lyndon B. Johnson. If we can take out the head of the household, if we can remove the head of the household, then we can become the head of the household. If I can remove the protector and the provider in your family by simply just giving you some social, I'll give you some assistance here and there. You can always call the police if you have an issue, but most importantly, it's just a money thing, right? Okay, so then we'll just make sure that we'll just give you all these social programs so you don't have a need for a man. You don't have a need for a teammate because we'll be your teammate. It's always been removing the leader of the household in one way or another. A lot of people will say that was the target with a lot of the crime bill, right? You may not say that was the target of it, but you can see the results of what happens to a particular group of people when you remove the man, the leader, or you corrupt the leader, right? It's like the first way I want to do it, I want to remove it. Or maybe you prioritize corrupting it. But another form is to weaken it, right? So now when you weaken men, and we're clearly living during times, we talk about it all the time, where we have weak, emasculated men. Do we not think that these people would also try to feminize our men? Do we just think that all this stuff there's just a lot of guys walking around dressed like women, like, oh yeah, they're just free to express themselves. All right. Yo, this is an agenda. What isn't an agenda that happens in America? What isn't an agenda? Sports is an agenda, and he's getting ready to talk about it. Sports has just been used. Sports for the longest has been used, right? The circus, the Roman circus, to distract people. People start complaining about the way that they're living, disappointed in the leadership, the king, the Caesar, whoever else. Oh, let's give them some games. Let's give them something to entertain them, to take their minds off of their pain points.
If I control a bunch of platforms, or I control a bunch of accounts, or have a bunch of partners that are all in cahoots with me, I can also socially engineer conversations, start trends, kind of create a herd mentality where you think it's natural, but it's all algorithmically engineered to dictate the market. And then
you think it's natural, but it's all algorithmically engineered to control the market.
Last one I would say is like the digital dopamine. A lot of us are addicted to social media. We don't even know it, right? The rewarding feeling of getting likes, the rewarding feeling of getting impressions can cause addiction. And the opposite of that can cause the opposite, anxiety and depression. This is all reinforcing the overarching Michel Foucault's theory, the watchtower. And the philosophy is that physical authority has shifted to psychological authority. I was doing media after Celtics practice, and a writer came up to me and was asking me questions about politics and sports. And I just thought I'll just share my thoughts, the things that I learned at Berkeley. And I ended up telling him that sports is used as a mechanism for control. So that's exactly what he titled the article. Jaylen Brown says sports is used as a mechanism for control. I gained some support, but mostly I got a lot of backlash. But the front office, Danny Ainge at the time, called me into his office and was like, how could you say this? You're saying sports is used as a mechanism for control, but you just benefited from sports and changed your family generationally. And he's right.
I'm going to go back because I hate to interrupt Jaylen, but I just want to make a point in support of him. This is Danny Ainge, who's the president that called him in, or whatever position he's in, called Jaylen Brown in. And Jaylen Brown, let me translate what Danny Ainge actually said. You ungrateful nigga, who do you think you are? We pay you all this money for you to say that this is something that's negatively impacting you or anybody else? You ungrateful nigga. That's what he really said to him. Now, Jaylen Brown can take it however he wanted to say, or take it however he wanted to take it, or interpret it however. That's what was said. That is the reason why they'll give Jay-Z a whole bunch of money, while they'll give these goofy rappers a whole bunch of money. Think about the people that they'll give handouts to, give a whole bunch of money for. They'll give dumb rappers money, and let me not just say dumb. The majority of us, I think, are dumb, myself included. I think we are conditioned to be dumb. I think we breathe in dumb air, but whatever. The rappers are impoverished, a lot of them, and I shouldn't even say a lot of them, but they're feeding on whatever means that rapper is missing on, and they manipulate them into poisoning their people even more, which I think is just stupid and dumb on another level. But they're getting paid for it, so therefore they excuse the behavior. How many times do we have to watch Leor Cohen or all these people? There's a matter of fact, let me show y'all something. I wasn't going to play this. I have to show y'all it. And I wasn't going to play it because I don't know exactly how I feel about it. I really don't know exactly how I feel about it. I think, hold on. If I can find this. There was a little kid. And I really don't support this for certain reasons, because I just like, damn, I don't want this kid to have to be out here doing this. Watch this video. Watch this video. Hold on. So the title says, hip hop made you guys a lot of money. Would you like to support a young artist? So this young kid is asking Jewish people if they want to buy his album because hip hop made Jewish people a lot of money. And I'll tell you what I don't like about it, but the point that it's clearly making.
We're gonna sell my album to some Jews. Hip hop made Jews a lot of money. So would you like to support my dreams? Would you like to buy my album? Because hip hop made Jews a lot of money. Hip hop made Jews a lot of money. Hip hop made Jews a lot of money. So can you buy my album? Since hip hop made Jews a lot.
I don't like this. I don't like this. Because I'll tell you the reason why I don't like this. One, I don't like that a kid is getting pushed to do this, probably by a parent or whoever else, and probably doesn't truly understand everything around it. And I don't like this for, what did we just talk about? The same reason why I don't like Megyn Kelly telling all the Haitians to leave. And hopefully you saw the live stream on Saturday, talking about that. When you try to paint a section of people into it, see, I don't think that the overwhelming Jewish culture, like there's certain things that we talk about when it comes to Jewish culture that I believe the overwhelming culture, the dominant culture. Same thing when it comes to Black culture. There's certain things that are dominant in the Black culture where I don't think that I'm talking about a select few, where I think that it's the dominant culture. When it comes to this, I don't think that the majority of Jewish people are benefiting off of rap music. I think that there's a select few like Leor Cohen and a few others that run the music labels that do not care about Black culture, that do not care about hiring Black people to make rap music that is spreading poison to their communities. I think that that's true. But I don't like this of walking up to random Jewish people. I didn't like this. I didn't like this. And you can't, unless I'm presented with information to where the majority of the Jewish people are benefiting off of the hip hop music, then I don't like this. But if you showed me something that somebody just said it's the majority, I don't believe this. But if you could tell me that, then if you could show me that, then cool. This is when I think things get out of hand. But the point that I wanted to make, the point that I wanted to make is that there's a large portion of people that benefit off of and do not care about pushing a particular poison with another group of people in order to push with their people. And what they'll tell a Jay-Z or these rappers that are spreading poison are being used to distract and manipulate the majority, let's say, of Black people to establish a culture that is detrimental to them, that they would never want spread to their culture. If those Black people then say, if those Black rappers just acknowledged and said, you know what, this rap music is used, negatively to manipulate and poison my people. It's almost like one of those execs coming to that Black person and saying, or that rapper and saying, what? This money changed your whole family. This money gave you generational wealth. And and you could tell how goofy a culture of people and how impacted we've been by simply looking at Jay-Z. How many people dick ride Jay-Z and see Jay-Z as a hero? Jay-Z is a poison. He's a poison. He's poisoned me. He's poisoned a whole lot of people. This man has made millions of dollars off encouraging us to do shit that will land us dead or in jail, and we celebrate it. Why? Because every once in a while, he'll give out turkeys in the hood, or he'll pay for a documentary to be done about a young Black man that was killed, or he'll take advantage and manipulate his way into being some sort of savior in the community. You can't be a savior when you destroyed the community and you were paid handsomely for it. But Black people are so goofy and stupid that we celebrate that dumb shit and allow it to be celebrated in our community rather than looking at him like, yo, he's a poison. Let me get back to the other video.
The front office, Danny Ainge at the time, called me into his office and was like, how could you say this? You're saying sports is used as a mechanism for control, but you just benefited from sports and changed your family generationally. And he's right. And I told him sports can be used to do great things, bring people together, change people's lives, inspire people, motivate, but it also can be used as the opposite. So I told Danny, like, it could be used as a way to distract people from what's really going on in society. There's panopticons, watchtowers that exist with.
And Danny Ainge does not care. Because why? Because it doesn't impact him. Danny Ainge Danny Ainge does not grow up where, and this is not like making Black people victims. Black people need to, I'm tired of all the victim shit. Figure your stuff out. But the reason why I say that Danny Ainge, and when I say figure your stuff out, it's for the successful people or the people that can lend a helping hand, not to say that just some young kid to figure yourself out, but stop asking the government to do certain things that mentors can do for a lot of these young kids. But Danny Ainge does not grow up in a country where every single white kid in America has one of two dreams. The majority of white kids, let's say, play basketball, play in the NBA, or go to the NFL. That is the dominant goal of a kid, of any Black kid growing up in America. And of course, you'll have exceptions or cool, whatever else. But that is what's being pushed. How is it being pushed? Who else do we celebrate? I'm sorry, or become a rapper. You encourage young kids to behave or to strive to be the things that we as adults celebrate. So if we as adults celebrate these particular things, what do we think our kids are going to want to strive to be like? That does not impact Danny Ainge the same way that it impacts Black people. Matter of fact, I've gotten into arguments with some of my friends where they barely played high school. But I've made certain comments saying like, yo, sports, like football, man, it's some plantation shit, like da-da-da, and that's, what are you talking about? You don't know anything. Like, you're just disappointed in how your career ended. I'm disappointed in how my career ended. Yours never started. But that's what they'll say, right? And it's the same thing as Jaylen Brown. But that's why I'm glad, and that's why it's very important for a guy like Jaylen Brown, who's still in his prime, to be speaking on it. Because what was one of the criticisms of Kaepernick? It's like, man, Kaepernick was already on his decline, so then he wanted to make, you know what I mean? They're going to make whatever excuse. What excuse do you have for Jaylen Brown saying it? He's in the prime, just won a finals MVP a few years ago. He's still making big, like, I celebrate this man for doing this. I celebrate him for doing this, because when you call it out, people that aspire to or are so locked in on this particular aspect of life, culture that you're calling out, it's like if I'm talking to one of my boys that coaches football, you coach high school football or college football or whatever, and I'm saying like, yo, our kids don't really need, if I'm pushing a message, not even to them, like, but they hear me saying it. And a lot of times that's how it happens. It comes out where in an argument where it's like, yo, I didn't even know you like heard that message. Like, okay, why didn't you, if you had an issue with it, why didn't you address it when you heard me say it? Because they still have those same child boyish dreams that they're trying to live vicariously through those kids who they're teaching. A lot of them. Some are trying to teach them morals, principles. I get all that. But a lot of y'all, let's be real. Y'all trying to live through these kids because you fell short of your dreams. And you're not willing enough, and there's nothing wrong with still coaching. But how amazing would it be is if you're still coaching to have a certain principle and say like, yo, this sports shit is never going to be as important as the things that you do outside of it. This sports is only supposed to teach you things that then you can apply to in real life and elevate your life, your life, whoever it is that you're looking to, whatever it is that you're looking to achieve, you're going to apply these principles that you're learning in sports to those things. Sports is a distraction. Has always been a distraction. What's wrong with saying that?
In sports as well, where like media training is like a way of programming athletes to think, act, and behave the same. Nothing controversial, nothing political, nothing unsafe. And the people that I admire the most were the exact opposite of that. Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, Jim Brown, they all use their platforms for something beyond sports. So while I'm here, while I got my platform, those who are listening and those who may be listening in the future back home, I just want to encourage people to be not afraid to be who you are, be proud of where you come from, and to think critically and think for yourself. When I was in high school, I had to make a big decision. I was the #1 player in the country. People would think that's an easy decision to make. It's actually one of the hardest I've ever had to make. Like, as an 18-year-old, you can go to any school in the world that you want to based upon your talent and your ability. How do you narrow it down, right? So, typically most human beings would see like, okay, players like me or people like me, let's see what other people like me, decisions they made. So that's what I kind of did. A lot of the players that were like me went to Kentucky or Kansas or North Carolina. That was the typical algorithm within a top 5 player, top 5 prospect in the world. So I made a decision that at 18 that if I was going to use my platform, I was going to be in control. So instead, I went to UC Berkeley and explored my educational career versus going to what the algorithm would have preferred me to do.
So first of all, where's the sweet spot between authenticity and strategy? Because we know streaming platforms are made by the same people who are willing to cancel you when you talk about something that that is not going accordingly to what they really want people to know.
When it comes to how I decided to use my platform, I lean in on authenticity more than anything. When I made a decision about how I'm going to use my platform, I'm okay with the consequence.
Yeah, man. And I want to go back to that question that the gentleman asked. Like, what's the difference? What's the balance?
The typical algorithm.
What's his question?
Like me, decisions they made. So that's I've ever had to make. Like, my platform, I was going to be in control. So instead, I went to UC Berkeley and explored my educational career versus going to what the algorithm would have preferred me to do.
So first of all, where's the sweet spot between authenticity and strategy? Because we know streaming platforms are made by the same people who are willing to cancel you when you talk about something that that is not going.
I wanted to go back to that because that's obviously, I think y'all see me dealing with this in real time, where it's like, what's the difference or what's the sweet spot between authenticity and strategy? I really hope that I can contribute to the next generation not having to be torn between this question. That's one of the things that I would really love to contribute to. The next generation not having to ask, what's the sweet spot between authenticity and strategy? A lot of times when we're speaking out on stuff, or if you use your voice, if you're going against the grain, you're learning as you go, because there's no blueprint that was set before you. And maybe there are some, but you know, I know when it comes to me, I don't really have a blueprint or somebody that I look to. I mean, there's a lot of people, I guess, from a content standpoint that I appreciate, but this has definitely been a struggle. How do you remain authentic and just say, yo, there's a genocide going on? Like, we got to stop this. But then you risk losing the investor for your business, which is what happened with me. How do you try to figure out a way to sit down with maybe people who have opposing views? And the beautiful thing that we can do on here is you can sit down with people. I just sat down with Jaylen Brown, and I'm sitting down with y'all, and we're all having a conversation, right? And we're figuring out how to think, how to process, how to take in the information and use it to do something better. But who we should also sit down with is maybe the people who are hated, the people who have different ideas, the people who don't present things the same way that we would present them. Shouldn't we sit down with them too? Maybe it's even more important to sit down with them. So when I sit down with Nick Fuentes and I process what he's saying, because everybody's hating him, but he's a big voice, I want to have a conversation. So when I'm having that conversation with Nick, where Nick gives his opinion on a particular topic, and then I finish up giving mine, now I have people that I consider friends, or people that, you know, tell me that they're my friends, and they don't want to do business that has absolutely nothing to do with me, where they're asking my other friends, hey, do you work with David on this? Because if you work with David on this, then we're not going to work with you. That, like, what type of sucker ass shit is that? Like, that's like, Diddy used to have a term for that. That's bitch assness. I got to call a spade a spade. That's emasculated feminine energy, bro. And I hate to say the feminine, let me just say it's emasculated energy, bro. Like, you don't know my heart. Like, y'all can't be on this show with me or follow me on Instagram and see the type of things that I post, see what I'm into. I'm into my parents, my family. I don't think that anybody watches me and says, like, yo, that person just got a bad heart. But it's the people that are a lot of times the closest to you, that if you don't agree with the things that they're saying, then they try to, like I said, I hope that I can get to a position where, see, people want your authenticity only when your authenticity aligns with what makes them feel comfortable and aligns with what works with their agenda and what it is that they're trying. Like, people, I don't feel uncomfortable talking to anybody, really. Having a conversation. I would love to sit down with people that I get more excited about that than people that I agree with. Who wants to just sit down and talk to people they agree with all day? Like, that's do that. I can't. Like, I probably won't grow from that. But it's just, that's a very telling question, and I don't know how they picked that particular question for this. But how do you balance authenticity with strategy? Strategy to do what? Like, if anything, that should show us how cowardly men, fellas, that should show us how cowardly our leadership has been when you have young kids asking a question of how do we balance authenticity with strategy? What? The strategy to make money? How do I balance not being myself so I can make a few dollars? How do like, do we understand where that leads us to? And then we sit here and wonder why our politicians that we're voting for, oh, he said he was going to do this, but he didn't. He's not authentic. He's not authentic. Well, yeah, maybe he's just balancing his percentage of authenticity with the strategy to just win your vote. And you keep voting for him. You keep voting for them. So why would they change their level of authenticity if their strategy is working for you? It's working to win your vote. I just, that's definitely one of my goals that I hope that I can help with. I hope that I can help with. So where kids do not have to decide between being my authentic self. And what's so funny is you hear all this goofy shit now where it's like, I want to be my authentic self. What does that even mean? Like, nobody who's being their authentic self talks about being their authentic self. You just are. Like, it's very well. All right. Let's get up out of here. It's after 10. Let's go through a little bit of breathing. Hold on. Hold on 1 second. Is it frozen? My dad texted me a while ago that it, okay, I think we're good. I think we're good. Let's go through some breathing. Let's go through some woosah. So we're going to go through 4 different breathing cycles. 4 different breathing cycles, or 4 breathing cycles, not different breathing cycles. All we're going to do is a 4-second inhale where we're intentionally focusing on the positive energy, inhaling it, inhaling all that positive energy. What we focus on grows, right? So let's focus on that positive energy. And then we're going to hold for 4 seconds. And then we're going to exhale on a 4-second exhale, putting out all that positive energy that we just inhaled. And it's almost like when we're holding the breath in, it's just compounding, right? We're compounding because what we're focusing on is growing. So then when we put it out there, now we're putting out an even larger frequency of positive energy that's aligned with us elevating, working towards the greater peace, right? So if you're in a safe place, close your eyes. If not, do what you feel is best. All right. Let's no, if not, leave your eyes open, but do what you feel is best regardless. All right, let's do a 4-second inhale. Ready? Begin. Hold. Release. Inhale. Hold. Release. Inhale. Hold. Release. Inhale. Hold. Release. We'll go through one more cycle. Inhale. Hold. Release. All right. That joint, it hit me earlier on this time. Usually it happens on the third or fourth where I get that little throws it all where you start to make all the funny faces, where you feel the inhale, you feel the breath work, doing its work. But yeah, man, great. I appreciate y'all. Dope convo. I know y'all always have your own convo in the chat. That is probably the most amazing part of what we do together. So y'all know what it is. Onward and upward, strength and honor. Let's get to that bag, man. What is that bag? That bag is everything that we're focusing on a day-to-day basis. The small things that end up turning into big things. What are we focusing on, right? What we focus on grows. So we want to make sure that we're focusing on the things that are aligned with the growth that we're looking to have. So what I like to focus on: peace, love, happiness, health, wealth, and everything we do, integrity. And shout out to Glabo for always giving us that sprinkle of perspective. So gotta have that balance, man. Gotta have the balance. That's all I got for y'all, man. That's all I got. So let's I gotta catch up with some of the comments. But as always, appreciate y'all. And I shall see y'all on Friday, or maybe before Friday. Maybe I'll see y'all before Friday. But if not, y'all have a good one. And yeah, lean in. Let's lean in. Whatever that means for you, it means for you. But I'll see y'all on the next one. And as always, we finish off with Quee sending the fire emojis. I'll see y'all soon. And hold up. We can't forget the quote. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. I love that. That's the perfect quote. That's the perfect quote to finish it off, big bro. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Phyllis, love you and appreciate you. Thank you. I really mean that. Thank you. I'll see y'all soon.